Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're breaking down one of the most audacious gambles in military history, a battle that could have ended Alexander the Great's legendary conquests before they even really began. So picture this. After a year of just non-stop victories across Asia Minor, the young Macedonian king, who seemed totally invincible, suddenly finds his unstoppable advance grinding to a screeching halt. His supply lines were cut, and his army was trapped. So how does that happen? And more importantly, how do you get out of it? Let's dive in and see exactly how Alexander managed to turn this absolute strategic disaster into a victory that would echo through the ages. Okay, so before a single sword was drawn at Issus, you gotta understand the real battle was a giant chess match playing out across the region. And the Persian king, Darius III, made two really brilliant opening moves. First, Darius gives his top general, a guy named Memnon of Rhodes, a massive fleet. And Memnon gets right to work, snatching up islands in the Aegean, threatening to cut Alexander off from home, and maybe even start a rebellion back in Greece. It was a masterful plan. But then, right at the peak of his success, Memnon suddenly gets sick and dies. And just like that, the entire naval threat just vanished. So, with his first plan basically ruined by a stroke of bad luck, Darius decides, fine, I'll do it myself. He gathers the full might of the Persian Empire and starts marching west to crush this young Macedonian upstart once and for all. And this is where Darius pulls off his masterstroke. While Alexander is marching south along the coast, expecting a head-on fight, Darius takes his massive army on this long detour through a northern mountain pass, and he comes down behind Alexander, capturing his base at Issus and completely cutting him off from his supply. In one brilliant move, Darius had totally flipped the script. Alexander was now caught between the massive Persian army and the sea. He was outnumbered, cut off, and facing not just a defeat, but the complete annihilation of his army. This was it. This could have been the end of his entire dream of conquest. With no other choice, Alexander had to turn his entire army around and march north to confront the force that had just trapped him. And what followed was just a classic clash of military philosophies. On one side, you have the Persian army. We're talking a sprawling, multi-ethnic force of around 100,000 men, with King Darius himself leading from the center. And on the other side, Alexander's army. Yeah, they were battle-hardened veterans, but there were only about 40,000 of them, less than half the size of the Persian force. So let's look at the strengths here. The Persians had the sheer numbers and a huge advantage in heavy cavalry, which was perfect for the flat ground near the sea. The Macedonians, though, their strength was in their superior training, their incredible discipline, and, of course, the unmatched leadership of Alexander, who always led from the very front. The two armies line up on opposite sides of the narrow Pinarus River. And now the entire battle is going to come down to a single, desperate race. The question was simple but absolutely critical. Could Alexander's elite cavalry on the right wing smash the Persian line before his own outnumbered and overwhelmed left flank collapsed completely? And make no mistake, on the Macedonian left, near the coast, General Parmenion and his troops were taking an absolute beating. The Persian heavy cavalry was just hammering them, and Parmenion's wing was on the very verge of breaking. But on the opposite side of the field, Alexander was unleashing hell. He personally led his elite Companion Cavalry in a devastating charge right across the river, smashing into the Persian infantry and completely shattering their left wing. Now here's where you see Alexander's genius. Instead of chasing the fleeing Persians, which is what most commanders would have done, he pulls off a brilliant pivot. He wheels his entire cavalry force around and crashes into the flank and rear of the elite Greek mercenaries who were giving his centers so much trouble. This was the moment that broke the Persian will. From his chariot, Darius sees his left flank just disintegrate. He sees his elite guards being slaughtered, and then he sees Alexander himself charging closer and closer. In a moment of sheer panic, he abandons his royal chariot and flees for his life. For the Persian army, seeing their god king turn and run was simply unthinkable. It shattered their morale completely. This wasn't just a retreat, it was a total psychological collapse that pretty much handed Alexander control of the entire western half of the Persian Empire. The fighting was over, and as the sun went down, Alexander's weary but victorious soldiers were left with the unimaginable riches of the Persian royal camp. They captured a treasure trove, just vast amounts of gold, silver, and all sorts of luxuries. But even more important than the treasure, they captured Darius's entire royal family, his mother, his wife, and his children, who had been traveling with the army. Alexander actually chased Darius until it got dark, but couldn't catch him. When he got back to camp, he found that the king's personal tent had been prepared for him, exactly as it would have been for Darius. So he walks through these rooms filled with treasures, servants, golden baths, luxuries that were just completely beyond anything a Macedonian king would have known. He takes it all in, turns to his companions and says, "This, as it would seem, is to be a king." He'd won the battle. He'd secured the entire western half of the Persian Empire. But this first real taste of absolute, almost unimaginable luxury, it marked a turning point. It began a transformation in Alexander himself, one that would raise a profound question. In conquering Darius, would he also become him?